morning, guys. Eric and Ellie again. I'm kind of curious to take the timing chain cover off the Vibe and see what the metal shavings are coming from. And, you know, like I say, hopefully it's a replaceable component that we already got in the box right there. The water pump situation with them bolts, RockAuto didn't have nothing. Even eBay didn't have anything. I could have rummaged through the boxes down Napa. They have a couple bolts down there, metric bolts, but I mean they're almost $7 a piece. So you know it's not going to be it's a 6-bolt set. So I did find on monkeywrenchracing.com. This is for what we have. The factory one is even has a nice diagram here. I don't know if it gets any bigger, but this is what we have, the even flange. I mean, I know I've seen this before. It seemed like the factory ones are all this smaller flange, but it's the same water pump. We just have a bigger flange right there. He gives you a size of the bolts and everything, but that's what I'm saying. Pricing these bolts out at Napa, it's, you know, $36 compared to $7 with it's $10 shipping for U.S. priority, so 2 to 4 days. So hopefully on the 2 side, but at least we know we're going to have the right ones in there. So that solves that. Now today, the first thing I'm going to do is start taking off the timing chain cover. But first, I have to set it the top dead center. So I'm going to take out the number 1 spark plug, and then we're going to line up the sprockets. Now we've seen it was off, you know, a couple degrees on the cam and crank correlation. Now we'll be able to set it at number 1 at top dead center, and we'll be able to line the cams up and look at the marks manually. And then I'm going to take off the sprocket or the harmonic dampener, the crank pulley. You're going to take that off of there, and then we have nice easy access to all the bolts on timing chain cover, so we'll get it off and we're going to see what the hell where them shavings are coming from. Well, the first thing is set at the top dead center and number 1, and then we're going to manually check the timing. Then I'm going to remove the dampener, which is the crank pulley, and then we have a nice easy shot. The power steering pump's out of our way, water pump and alternators out of our way. Nice easy shot. We even got the harness out of our way. This AC line, I know I think on a Corolla I disconnect these just to get a little bit more room in there, but this looks like a nice open spot, and we'll do that if we have to whenever we get to it. All right, guys, I took out all 4 spark plugs. Last time when I took out one, I checked the gap on it. They were under gapped. So we got some new ones for it, but these come pre-gapped. You never want to gap these. There we go. There's the little enhance. But they're very lean, and you don't want to bend these electrodes to re-gap them. They will be firing lean if the gap's too narrow, and it was probably about 10 thousandths under. So we're going to put the new ones in. Otherwise, I mean, these are dense. I doubt they're the factory ones, but you don't gap these at all. You take them right out of the box and you put them in, but I do check them before I put them in just to make sure it's the right ones for the car. I got on the crank bolt, I got just a long-handled 1/2-inch ratchet, and I put a, you know, brightly colored zip tie in the number 1 hole there, just in crank it, and as soon as it stops moving, there's just like you'll get a couple clicks where it just floats. It's not going to move one way or the other. That's right where you want to be. I'm going to get you on a tripod and just watch this as I turn it. And then to make sure we're not 180 degrees out, we're going to check the camshaft sprockets, and they should line up. There should be a mark on this sprocket and on the actual actuator. Wow. All right, I put a little bit of white on balancer marks. The one on the bottom is 0, the one closest towards my fingers up here, and then the one is 10 degrees, the one facing away from us. Now to watch this. Still coming up on TDC. Still rising. Still rising. I'm going to put this mark right at the 0. And then we're going to look and we're going to see where we have the exhaust cam, but we don't see no marks on the intake cam yet. Wait a minute. There's the mark for the intake cam. It's a little bit difficult to see, but the mark for the intake cam's right on that tooth right there. And this is what I mean, well, I disconnected that AC hose just to get a better view from back here in general. You just pick it up out of the way. Let's see if that'll... Here's a better view of it. See those two dots right there? They're supposed to be touching each other. Like that one, the pointy end would be going into that little groove in between the teeth. So they should be straight across. That's how far it's out sitting there. We want to make sure, and we're still on the 0 down there. I'm just curious to make the cams line up. We're already moving down. Right there's where them guys should be. That's what I mean about going back to why I say jack up the back of the car too. Look at the angle of the engine, like as I'm just standing here. It's leaning backwards a little bit. So if you have it doing more of a incline in the front, it makes it harder to get a good perspective on what's level with the engine. All right, guys, there's that would be dead on with the camshafts. The dot on this cam with the actuator, it's a little bit hard to see, but you could see where it's written exhaust on the back one. And that's where it would be dead on there. But then if we look on the crank how far it moved, lines off the 0. It's not a terrible amount for an engine with this many miles on it, but that's how I like doing them. I like lining them up with the top dead center first, seeing how far the cams are at, and if they are, align the cams, and then double check on your crank marks. So you're kind of just double confirming it, and you're ending up turning in the right direction, because you don't want to put the slack in the chain going backwards. You always, if you do have to turn the engine backwards a little bit, make sure that you take at least the chain slop out of it turning forward, if that makes sense. you don't want the slop going backwards. If there's slop up here, then keep turning forward until you come upon your timing marks. I figure it'd be just easier showing you than trying to comprehend that. Whenever I turn the engine backwards, watch the chain slop. It's going to this side of the chain. So if we turned it backwards a couple notches to get past the 10-degree mark there, now I want to turn the engine forward. But whenever I do go to turn it forward, you're going to see the crank starts moving before the chain does. So even if you had to back up like that, as long as you got, see the crank's moving and the chain's not, now the chain's coming with it. So that's going to be an accurate mark down on the bottom for as far as TDC goes. It's just if you overshot TDC on the bottom, you don't want to turn it back and just line it up. You want to go back a little bit more and come at it forward. Hope that makes it make a little bit more sense, but that's how you get the slop out of them. So then there again, we're on TDC with the crank, right where we should be. And we could see them notches do not align. So it's like one crankshaft tooth off. You know, that's why the engine wasn't setting any codes for timing, but it was getting to the point where, you know, sooner or later it was going to. I was going to show you guys this balancer puller, but I was putting it on there. I couldn't move it with my hand, the balancer, or with a small pry bar while I was setting this up. See, this will grab the outside edge. I didn't even have a chance to get my ratchet, just hand tighten it, pulled it off. So I figured I should show you guys this puller. If it did it with just turning this like this, I was going to get a ratchet and grab the camera, and just as I was snugging it up, it's a pretty cool puller. It just pulled it right off. Toyotas, I mean, usually you get lucky with them. I mean, you don't need a puller. You could just wiggle them off. But I figure one with this high miles, it's been on there for a while. I was going to just, you know, use the puller because it wouldn't budge easy. But, you know, just with the hand screw, took that off. All right, good job. That's an OEM Tools one. I forgot what I got it for. I forget what I got it for. Maybe Honda or Kia, something. But you could flip these jaws the other way for the type of balancers that have like spokes in them that you could see through. It'll go through the center of the balancer and grab it and pull it off. It was for something I needed to pull it off for. Might even have been for a GM, I'm not sure, but sure has come in handy since. All right, guys, I got all the bolts out of the engine, out of the timing chain cover. I just take a piece of cardboard, you know, write down anything, you know, obvious like the water pump crank sensor, because there's a couple bolts missing for the water pump. So you want to do everything you can, you know, refresh your memory whenever you're putting it back together. But this one, the stud, I remember taking this out. That's the thing, I mean, I've done quite a few of these engines, but in between I've done, so 2 Nissans, the Dodge, a couple Chevys, and a Honda since the last time I seen one of these. So everything in your head, you see it, you remember. I see things like that. Something told me that stud had to come out of there. It was easier to get it out or something. So I took that out, and then whenever I look down here, I see this bolt here. There's a VVT screen behind that. So I know we want to clean that out and make sure it's all in one piece. Because, yeah, that's, I mean, after a while, they just all start looking the same, and that, but you see things and you just remember this is on this engine, this goes on this, and something about that stud stuck out. I think it might be getting it around that line or something, but got you perched up here. I'm going to get one of them orange hammers and a little pry bar, and we're going to just crack that open like an Easter egg. There's a couple little like tangs on here to pry against and hit, but you don't want to start with the one with the water pump. It's like just a flat piece of aluminum. What I like doing them is giving them, they got to come across this stud, so just get them from behind like this. Give them a couple taps. And then just make sure. See, it's separated here. And that might have been the thing with that stud. It might not, because it goes the whole way through. But see, it's separated down there at the bottom. Nice and easy. If you feel any resistance, or did you hear how that sounded? Like the first hit, you could hear it was hollow, that was loose. If it sounds solid when you first tap on it a couple times like that, just stop tapping. Double check it. Run your finger the whole every inch of that diamond chain cover. Sometimes there's a bolt in the center. Sometimes there's a bolt under these lips. Just make sure you're not missing one. But if you hear that, you know, that vibrating sound, like when you hit it, like something's about to rattle, you know you're on the right track, and keep giving it a couple more taps. But even then, the way I could feel it move, I want to make sure that the back's moving too. You just don't want to break these covers. These are, if you ever do need one, YoshiParts.com. We had to wait about 2 weeks for a Nissan diamond chain cover, the one the chain chewed through, but it was like $400 cheaper. It's YoshiParts.com. It's all Asian parts. He's in Japan, so he goes right to the factory. Pretty decent site. Save some money even over eBay price. Right, the back looks like it's still up against the block, so I don't want to push the front anymore. But I don't think we have to hit it anymore. You want to watch hitting these, I mean, but sometimes you got to hit these, you know. It depends. Sometimes, like, yeah, Honda's the Honda bond they put on them. It's incredibly strong. Even, you'll swear there were still bolts holding it sometimes. Yeah, you see it's rocking back and forth, don't come off the pins. Well, I heard something metal drop out of there. Yeah, it's the first look inside that. So there's a little bit of metal down the bottom here. See where it came from. Alright guys, she's dirty in there, but I don't see nothing that was rubbing, or usually right around in here where the chain goes around. Oh, I'm sorry, I wasn't even showing you. Right around in here, you'll see it's starting to get it like a cheese grater, and not seeing much of that. Tiny bit there, but you'd think the way this was rubbing, the sound it was making, it's more than that. That piece that I thought was a piece of metal falling out of the bottom here, it was this piece of silicone. It's like what they got around time and chain tensioner and everything else. It goes on the front. That's what like that Honda bond turns to, that I was telling you about. Optimum doesn't turn quite like that, but it's you know, it's about its equivalent. But no, I don't see nothing major that would have caused that metal to be stuck to that crank sensor. Now the odd thing is, what I'm thinking in my head, that there is one more rotating mass down there, and that's the oil pump. At 250,000 miles, you know, won't be a bad idea. And the odd thing is I have one oil pump that was sitting in the back of this shop for, I don't know how long, and I took it out. I hit it with Google Lens, see what it was. Took me straight to Amazon. I'll show you. And it says fits 2005 Pontiac Vibe. You go to Google Lens. SKOM 386. Go to Amazon. SKOM 386. Fits Pontiac Vibe. I'll be damned. What's the chances of that? Now looking back, that was Aaron's mom's old Corolla. The car's long gone. We were going to put an oil pump on it. I mean, her dad, he has a horrible maintenance record. He doesn't check the oil. He believes, I mean, I call him Little Godzilla just for the damage he does to Asian vehicles. You know, he had the same engine, and it was junk at 70, I think 5,000 miles. This thing got 250,000 on it. The only difference is he believes you never have to change the oil, just keep adding it. And this has a Carfax full oil maintenance record. So that's the difference. But still, at 250,000 miles, these oil pumps usually don't give you trouble. You know, the chances of it being there is just a sign that we got to send this thing down the alley with a new oil pump in it, you know. So I'm going to put that on it too. And that, like I say, when you do so many different vehicles, you forget how things go on. Now, I unwrapped it and took a look at it because some of them have a pickup screen that goes through into the oil pan. So you have to take off the oil pan, and some have a balance shaft. This one's straight up and simple. It's just driven off the crank gear, or off the actual crankshaft itself. The crankshaft goes through and it builds up the speed. But now you could see this is a small unit, and you could hear, you know, that might be the source of our metal shavings in there. So it's another rotating mass. This spins around to build the oil pressure. So, you know, that could have been part of its bearings in there. But anyways, sending a car down the road with a new timing chain and an oil pump is going to give you a lot of confidence that, you know, this thing got some more life in it, going to last some, you know, as long as he needs it. All right, guys, using my hillbilly cam holders, I'm going to break the bolts loose from the camshaft on the actuator and sprocket on the exhaust cam. Just want to keep them there long enough so it... There you go. That one's loose. There goes that one. Those are just crescent wrenches, but it holds it there enough to turn it. Because you don't want to, even if you hold it from the bottom on the crank bolt, it's hard to get under there and hold it or wedge it up against something. And without the tensioner in there, you know, the chain might spin on the sprocket. So it's best just grabbing them. There's flat spots to grab them with a wrench. You need two of the same one. I have one that's like a 13/16, and then you need another 13/16. Next, I'm just going for, there's a 10mm bolt here, and a 10mm bolt right there. And that's going to just take off the front guide. Somebody out cutting the grass again. So I'm just looking for the Toyota on it, or looks like a factory one, but it's not missing any of the plastic. See, this is what I was hoping that grinding was in there, is the metal that this nylon goes to. The god's got some wear on the edges, but not that bad. I'm going to just slide the chain off. It's a little loose on there. I don't know if you could see the movement, but that definitely wasn't our sound. They come separated right here. Then they get in there and bust everything up right where I'm moving at. If I get some light on, give you a little bit better shot. Hard to get some light on here. They do that long enough and then this breaks off. But you could see the wear that the chain put on that. You see how there's that piece in the middle? That's where the inside of the chain is. The outside of the links, they rub down there. And I mean, that could be our rubbing sound right there. Sounds a little bit louder than that to me. Now I'm going to just fish the chain out of there. Then take the back guide off last. Easier said than done. Okay, now we have to slide off the reluctor wheel to get the chain to clear it. You don't want to use this, lose this, and see there's a mark on it. If there's not, you want to mark at. I'll show you in 1 second here. They were stuck on the bottom sprocket there, but see the F right here? That's for forward. If it's not marked, you definitely want to mark this. This is what was making that signal that we seen for the crank signal. Now, the crank signal, the sensor sits here and it picks up each one of these wheels passing, and where that one little AC looking wave was, that's where there's no teeth. But you know, that crank signal was picking up pretty good, especially for having that all that metal hanging on the end of it. There you go. It's the only damage I found really on well, dropped the bolt out of it, but the only damage I found was the wear grooves in there, and this one, the tensioner, was behind it. Now I took the tensioner off, but there's a clip missing. So this was laying behind it, and the tensioners, the whole, extended the whole way. And that could have been part of the noise. And what I found in the bottom of the oil, like the passage at the bottom of the timing chain cover, it's chewed up. It's the same color as this. Little chewed up piece of plastic. So I think that was what was left of that. I don't think that was the sound, but that's just the way timing components wear. A lot of ones out there that are good are missing a chunk of these, usually there at the tops, wherever the vinyl or nylon wraps around the metal. That's where you see a couple of these broken off, and they'll still stay in time. They'll make some noise as long as this doesn't move. Now this one that we seen moving a little here, like that'll make a noise going back and forth, but we were looking more for a noise going this way. We could hear a rubbing, and right there we could see where it's rubbing good, but you'd expect the chain to be ground into that more to make that sound. So we're going to keep looking towards the pump at least anyways. And I'm going to take off the camshaft sprockets, get them all cleaned up, and then it's time to start cleaning everything up, getting it ready to go back in. Okay guys, looks kind of normal in there. There's the oil pump down there at the bottom. I'm going to take that off. Always make sure that keyway stays in. I've never had one come out on a Toyota, but if you do have, if you lose one, I mean, you're in the world of hurt. You're going to have to order it almost certainly. I don't know if the dealership even has any of them, but we're going to put the pump on it, start cleaning it up and getting it back together. All right, guys, there's 250,000 mile Toyota gears. You got some wear on them, but I mean, they're all still there. The actuator's off. There's a new oil pump, and there's the old guy. I didn't see any more metal inside. I looked into the holes. Everything looks pretty clean in there. It looks like the inside, like where the oil actually flows, there's no buildup or anything. But you know, can't be pumping as much as it once did, and we're going to make sure it does now. Here's a quick tip, guys. You don't want anything scraping from the gasket going down into the oil pan. I just use Harbor Freight magnets. Stick them to it. Better magnets hold a lot better. The better the bag, of course, the better it works, but just keeps anything from falling down there, any RTV, and getting in the pan. All right, guys, pump I had on the shelf, it even had a gasket with it. What I do is put a little bit of Optimum. This is RTV I was talking about. I smear a little bit on both sides of the gasket, the one side mainly to hold it there, but you can't really go wrong, but you don't want to go globbing it on there. I just put on my fingers and go around it, and makes a good tight seal, because these gaskets are a little bit kinked from the factory. I mean, they just cram them in that box. So, and on bolts, I cleaned them up with just hit it with brake clean and a shop towel, and then blue Loctite. And I'm going to look up the torque specs and crack that on. I always leave this sit about 10 minutes, like while I'm looking up the torque specs. That's fine. You don't want to put it on sopping wet. Just makes a mess and slides around. All right, guys, looking quickly. Ivan says 97 inch-pounds for the oil pump bolts, or 11 Newton meters for you guys on the other side of the pond or the border, or basically anywhere else in the world. All right, guys, got the oil pump in the bottom, got the bolts Loctited, got the bolts torqued. Use Harbor Freight torque wrench, but we torqued them. It's better than not torquing them at all. I mean, that's the whole idea, is the evenness. If it's off in a couple inch-pounds one way or the other, at least you're doing it even and consistent. That's what the main idea of the torquing is. So you don't tighten one like 10, 15 more foot-pounds than the other one. That you're, you know, all the same. So there's a little, let me get the light down there. If you see right here, there was the bolt goes here. This bolt goes in there, and behind that bolt is a screen. That's a screen for the VVT, for the oil control valve. So what I do is just blow them out. This one's, I mean, a lot of times these are completely plugged. Just blow them out. These are hard to find anymore. Napa, nobody has these. You can order them on eBay, but this one has no, it's all there. A lot of times they're missing the screen altogether. So we're going to just blow it out with brake clean. Put her back in there. Okay, guys, after much cleaning, I got it looking like that. Now what I'm going to do is go ahead and put the intake actuator on and camshaft sprocket. And I'm going to just get a little bit of regular motor oil and just put on where the oil goes through. But first, I'm going to get a little bit of compressed air, and I'm going to blow air through these holes. That's just to make sure these oil passages are good and cleaned out. There's no buildup. I blew brake clean through them. This is what's going to move the oil pressure from the control valve is going to move the timing back and forth through these valves. So we want to make sure they're nice and clean. I put the filter back in down here. This bolt took it out, cleaned it. It's back in there ready to go. So I'm going to put the sprockets on first and then torque them. And on the card, I just put out all the timing components and the actuator. Now these come unlocked, and that's good. You never want to torque these locked because you could bend a little pin inside of here. You want to torque it unlocked and then lock it. All right, always keep an oil control valve sized brush around. This is just like a nylon bristle. I sprayed brake clean in it and got it with cloth as good as I could yesterday. Now I just put a little bit of brake clean on brush, and then the last pass I'll clean the brush real quick with a shop rag and then just put a little bit of clean engine oil on it. Then I'll blow it out with air. We should be good to go. Now the compressor might kick on. It's got it hooked up that little hot dog, but that's more than enough. It's just right over the oil hole. Nope, blew the rubber right off it. Yep, that's the thing with Harbor Freight. Some are winners, some are losers. But the rubber won't stay on the end of it, so I'm just blowing. Yep, I'll have to put the camera down to get this on the bottom part. And see, I just with my finger coat the ends of the camshafts. You don't want to go dumping a lot of oil down there yet. You're going to be sealing this front cover. And whenever we're all done and the front cover is sealed, we're going to be dumping oil down the top over the timing chain. So that it's going to get lubricated then. But right now, you don't want to just blindly dump oil over the end of that. We know we're going in dry, but we want these parts to have a little bit of oil on them. Make sure you got them facing the right way. They'll go on both ways, but you want to make sure the writing in the dot is on the side facing you. And then this little slot, that little metal pin right there will get right in that slot. It's a pretty solid fit, and it'll definitely stay there by itself. Just wiggle it till it gets in. Then next I'm going to put the bolts in with blue Loctite, and you clean the bolts off first. I always just take a wire wheel or a wire brush to them, get all the gunk out of them, spray them with brake clean, and then put the blue Loctite on them. And the book calls for 40 foot-pounds. I'm going to go for 42. I know Hondas, they use 68 on these. It's 40's low, but that's what the book's calling for. But I'm going to go up with 42, and with the blue Loctite, it's going to be all right. And let's put a crescent wrench on the flat side of the cam. And then double tap it. And I'm going to do the same thing with the actuator. All right, and this is an important part. If you look at the dots on this actuator, they do not line up. This is the new one. They usually come unlocked like this. These dots are touching. They're locked when you take them off. When you install the chain, you want this locked, but when you install this actuator, you want it unlocked because there's a pin underneath there. And you could tell on this side too. If you look where this valve is and this valve, you don't want to tighten it locked and damage the pin inside. So you put this on the way it comes unlocked and make sure it is unlocked. There's a procedure for blowing air down. Probably be this hole, and you turn that with a screwdriver. Now you don't want to have to get into that yet. You want to put this on and just resist the temptation to lock this. If you pick this up in your hand and twist the gear in the actuator, it'll lock into place. Then you have to go through a procedure to unlock it. So just put it on. That's why I put it on last. I've actually done that. Walked past the car and just turned this. Almost like a fidget spinner, and it locked. Then you have, at least another hour. Okay, next we want to align the timing marks. You'll notice they won't align on the cam perfect because there's valve springs pushing back. Whenever you go to turn it and leave go, it pops back. So they do sell a tool that'll hold these cams in place. That makes it a little bit too easy. You just got to get a little bit creative. You could do it even in the actual manual. They show them using a crescent wrench like that. But you could do them one at a time, or you could just use a C-clamp and two crescent wrenches like this. And something like that works pretty good. And it's holding them both. You could see the marks right there. And you could see that top is straight down the bearings. Same with that one. It's exactly what you want. Now I'm going to set the crank, the top dead center, so that keyway is facing straight up. And then we're going to put the chain on it, put the sprocket on the crank, and then put the chain on it. And then the front facing timing chain guide. And next we put align the colored link. There's an orange link down here to align on the camshaft. There we go. You could see it a little bit down there. But so the chain don't fall on me, I'll just hook it to another bungee cord and have it holding up. And I just got it draped over the end of the crankshaft till I get under there. Then I could set that perfect, and it'll still have tension on it from up here. See this dot here, I don't know if you see the dot, and it's lined up with that orange link, and this is still hanging from that bungee cord. So it gives me plenty of, if you're trying to hold it there, you could zip tie it or do other ways, but the bungee cord, it's always a good one. And the front shoe bolts, they get torqued to 89 inch-pounds. And of course with blue Loctite on them also. Okay guys, there's the notches aligned there. That notch is aligned with the paint mark. That one, in both the cams you see the lines, or the dots rather. It's right where they should be. It's right what we want there. And then down on the crank, we have the orange mark is still lined up with the mark on the crank pulley, or the crank gear. So now I'm going to turn my attention to scrubbing down timing chain cover and reluctor wheel. Get them all looking good, and then I got to take out the crankshaft seal. Then I'm going to put a new one in there. Hey guys, got everything all cleaned up inside of it. Got the surface ready for the gasket. The timing marks are still right where they should be. The bottom ones, the chain links, are still yellow to yellow, and the orange to the bottom. Cleaned up for the water pump. The bolt should be here tomorrow for the water pump, the correct ones. I took a pressure washer actually to the front cover and the wire wheel. Quickly hit it. You're not doing this for looks, but whenever you got a nice clean front cover and a nice clean rocker cover, it's easier to pinpoint leaks. At least this is going to tell you where it's not. If you have a nice, and you guys know, getting a timing chain job in a garage, I mean, they don't clean anything. It might go once through a parts washer, get the main amount of grease off, but you know, giving this Vibe the works here, trying to get it going. And we know it has a couple oil leaks, but this is one of the ones I told you we were going to seal. This is another one. I mean, this was a big one coming down in the back, so you seal them one at a time, and you could tell where it's not. Just like in the old days when we painted engines, it wasn't a lot of it, well, it was for looks, but on a painted engine, you could tell where a drop of oil is coming out a lot better than a greasy glob. Now this is the reluctor wheel. I cleaned it up. I hit it with the pressure washer also. A little bit of brake clean. Now after all this dries, probably over the weekend, I'm going to put the crank seal in and put the front cover on. We got the Permatex Optimum, so good to go with that. And always on these, when you put the reluctor wheel on, I'm going to set it on now. The F goes forward. Don't forget. All right, guys, I'm going to let this one go for now. Letting the front cover and the rocker cover dry. Got everything ready to go to put the RTV on the front cover. Now, usually these engines, you could spin them without the front cover on, and then you check your timing marks. Toyota's case, the timing chain tensioner goes into the cover, so you have to have the cover on to give it a good spin, but we're definitely going to do it while we could still see the cam gears. Check the timing after a complete revolution. Now, it's Easter weekend, so happy Easter, everybody. I'm going to be back and forth, but, you know, it might be a couple hours over the weekend, get the front cover back on. I do like leaving the RTV set overnight before you put oil in it. So it's a good, perfect time leaving it like this. So the next thing up, whenever I come back, put the crankshaft seal in, put the RTV on, put the front cover on, and then we'll get this thing back together running in a jiffy. Then we'll get the wheel bearings on and send on down the road. All right, guys, thanks a lot for watching. Happy Easter again. All right, adios. Hey, guys. Well, this one got a little bit weird. It was Easter Saturday, and by the way, I hope everybody had a, you know, fun, joyous Easter and ate a lot. I know I did, but at any rate, on Saturday I came up. I was going to put the RTV on the front timing chain cover and let it sit, you know, overnight. I always do before I add any oil. But whenever I was tightening it, I was down torquing everything. I had a 1/2 inch or a 3/8 inch torque wrench and a 1/4 inch torque wrench. When I was tightening very low on the oil pan, I'm just tightening along like normal. The torque wrench didn't even click yet. Then all of a sudden I heard like a little pop, and I'm like, well, maybe something fell up on the shelf or something. Then I gave it like another little turn, and then I heard a big loud snap. I'm like, wait a minute, this thing's, I mean, we're on inch pounds. You know, what happened? And I get up and I look down, sure as hell, the timing chain cover snapped. So I'm, you know, at that point you question everything. I'm like, this cheap damn Harbor Freight torque wrench. But then I'm thinking, guys, I mean, I was going to say 1,000, but I mean, legit 500 timing chains at least in my life. I mean, everything looked right. Everything checked out right. I mean, I'll show you what I mean whenever I go, but whenever I was tightening it, and this is what's weird, is one of the lower bolts, but one of the front shoes on the timing chain guide on the Toyota one, and I looked up a couple pictures on RockAuto, you could actually look at the part like a 360 view, and well, it depends how many pictures they include with it, but you could clearly see on the factory one, it's cut out on the bottom for the reluctor wheel. But at some point, you're like, is it the torque wrench fault? What the hell's happened? Is something caught in there? I mean, sometimes electrical connectors will hang down on the back, but it was sealed the whole way around. You know, whenever I pushed it on the pins, it was a good solid seal. You know, this was like a very, you know, just the corner of the timing chain shoe, the guide. And it's the plastic part too. It's not the metal shoe. I'll show you what I mean. That's going to make a little bit more sense, but immediately I found one, just ordered it. You know, that's what I'm waiting for today. And then yesterday I took care of, I put both the wheel bearings on. One of them was a real beast, but I know one of them, it says it was on the Carfax, one was replaced. I'm guessing that was the passenger side one. That's the one I did first. The press worked out good. It does no good taking them out, but an air chisel blasted them out. The one on the driver's side, that thing looked factory from the beginning. I wasn't sure it was going to get it out, but I had to use the air chisel and to use a acetylene torch, heat it up, but got that out. Wheel bearings are all on. It's good to go that way. I'm waiting for a timing chain cover. It's supposed to be here today, but I'm going to take off that front timing chain shoe. I'm going to show you what I'm talking about, but at that point, you know, they're getting mad. It's nobody's fault except for Ultra Powers. I mean, that's, you know, and then in the end, that's why I feel, you know, guilty, because I was the one that picked out the parts to order. And on that note, you know, they're not known for great parts, but they're half the price of a Cloy's. And I put upgraded actuators. I picked in the VVT valve, the oil control valve. Those are both better. I believe it's a standard oil control valve and an SA gear actuator. The Ultra Power, I didn't trust that, but usually a chain, guides are guides and the chain's a chain, the sprocket's a sprocket. I didn't trust Ultra Power with the actuator, but, you know, with a chain, you know, it's pretty much, this car's going to wear its rings out before it wears out another chain. If that's in 100,000 miles, fine. Even a cheap timing chain should last you 100,000 miles taking care of your oil. You know, especially with a whole new, I mean, an oil pump, a new VVT valve, a fresh oil change, and keeping up on the maintenance, 100,000 miles. But if you see my videos on Jim's, that was a 250,000 mile Honda Accord. It was no compression in 2 cylinders. It was still running, but it had like 60 pound in 2 cylinders. I mean, around 250,000 the rings go. We proved this thing still had some good compression, so there's a very good chance it'll get, you know. But thing is, it's not going to wear out a cheap chain. But you won't want to put a cheap actuator on it. You can wear out one of them real fast. But I mean, so in the end, you know, I just figured that's when you keep calm. You just, you know, you don't lose it. Shit like this happens. It happens. You just deal with it. But the main thing is you just get the car running. You don't let it affect anything. You know, it's a crappy deal. It's a crappy part. But all you do is keep in mind never to buy that part again. I mean, I've used a couple of these before. I've used it in a pinch, like if certain cars, if you put an axle in, you have to take the stay pins off. If somebody needs an axle and they weren't even counting on getting stay pins and you're ordering the axle, you're like, look, you know, we'll throw on 2 of these Ultra Power stay pins, and, you know, because, you know, if I have to torch these off and put them back on, you know, you're better off just getting these cheap ones. I've used them before. I've used a lot of their parts before, but you always do it, you know, with a little question in your head, because you hear the stories, but it's usually, you know, some of the stories you hear, I think if they had a factory part, they would got the same result. It was installation or sometimes just luck of the draw of a bad part. This is definitely, I mean, they're not even making them right. So I think we could fix this, and I have to take it off, but we're going to see if we could, you know, turn it into the right part, basically. I'll show you what I mean. It'll make more sense, I promise. Yeah, guys, and here's the snap rings from the wheel bearings. This is the one you could tell came out easy, and then there's the other one. That one put up a fight to the end. I even invented well, not invented, just repurposed a chisel to get in a groove. It's like the same thickness, so you could pound in a groove, and it wasn't even budging on this one. See, these tips all break here. You're supposed to grab on with the snap ring pliers here. One of them's always gone. This one, both of them were gone. So this one was probably factory. Made this to clean out to keep trying to move it to get pieces of it out. It eventually did work. So this one goes into the chisel bin. Sometimes you see them chisels at flea markets or yard sales, get them, and you know, you could grind them down, turn them into something. This was the passenger side. It came out pretty easy, went in real easy. The press works great putting them in. Coming out with the air chisel, you could see this one I had the torch. Then I made a little groove with the torch and hammered with the air chisel, blew it right out. There's where it slid off. It blew a hole out of the concrete, but hey, got it out of there. That one was in there a while. Here, guys, I'm still cleaning up now. I'm scraping off the RTV I did have on there. But just to show you what happened, everything looked fine. I mean, ready to go in. Put it on, but apparently behind the timing cover, this reluctor wheel, it bottoms out on a crankshaft gear. And apparently it was doing this. I don't know if I could get you in there to show you how crooked that is. Yeah, I could see it on the screen. You could tell it's offset like that. And whenever it pushed back like that, that's because on the bottom of that shoe, on one side, there's clearance for the reluctor, and on the other side, it's not. It's hitting the bottom of that shoe. And I'll show you the images from RockAuto, what it's supposed to look like. Okay, see how the bottom of this is notched? It doesn't extend the whole way down to the metal. On the one we have, it goes down the whole way to the metal, and that's cut out is for the reluctor wheel. This is the one that we have, and this would be the gear, and there's no cutout at all. So that's one of them things. I mean, it is right there in the pictures, but I'm telling you, that's one thing. As many changes as I've done, I don't inspect that part. Your difference would be in between these bolts. That's where you're going to find if this gear wasn't for this car, this guide, these won't line up. And sometimes even if it's supposed to be for the car, these don't line up. But usually a manufacturer, they'll offset one of these just so it won't work on another engine. You know, pretty much unwritten rules. If these bolt up, it's the right guide. You know, and it's, you know, you see how it was on the engine. You wouldn't even have known until you were pushing with equal force from everywhere. And just that one little sharp point split the cover. So what I've done, I've put zip ties in between the chain to hold it onto the gears. And then I've took out the crescent wrenches again And what I'm going to do is unbolt that, and then we're going to see if we could cut that piece out safely. And what it looks like is it's just a notch down to the guide, the metal. So we're going to hope that's the same. I believe it is. They just never notched this side out. All right, I got the guide off and chained it and moved. It stayed. The cam stayed still. And the crank is going to stay still. But it's the cams, because part of the spring is compressed. They will want to jump if you take the tension off. So we're seeing if we could do it without changing the timing. That's the whole tricky part. All right, guys, and here's the difference on the factory one. You see this recess? That's for the reluctor wheel. Goes very close inside that recess. There's no cutout at all on this one. So whenever that was in there, the reluctor's like this. Not just put the crack in it right behind where this shoe goes. So this, to cut that out, I have it's a plastic welding kit, and it has I think it might be easier than just sawing it. Might disturb it less. I'm going to try it on the old one, see how easy the hot blade cuts into that, and then we're going to just cut a piece out like the picture of the Cloy's chain comes. But one other thing I do notice, I'm going to want to grind out. This comes too close to the inside of the timing chain cover right there also. So the Toyota one, it's probably easier to see with it on top. Do you see how we still have right there, how it's wider, closer to my thumb? I think that's specifically to keep this further away from this. So I'm not going to take any chances, and I'm going to just grind that down to look like that. Or to keep it out of the way anyways. And then the reluctor wheel, I mean, you could see it didn't bend it. That's the first thing I was worried about. I feel a little wobble to it. Not much, but what I intend to do is with the press, I'm going to just sandwich this, because even on something perfectly flat, there's no rocking. But just to make damn sure, I'm going to put it on these, in between these, and just press it, you know. Put 12 tons behind it anyway. And this is what we're going to turn it into. See, right wherever that turn comes, it's flush with the actual metal. And then if you notice, it ends at the end of the metal, and this one continues past the metal. So that's going to catch that chain every time. And this is the actual ultra power one that we have in our hand. And it ends at the end of the metal. And this one continues at the end of the metal. So we're going to trim that flush to the metal like it was supposed to be, and like how the better chain comes. All right, guys, got my face shield out. You can wear a mask with whatever. I mean, a mask works under these, but I find for grinding, you know, these things are pretty. I got this at the welding store, and it was pretty decent. I mean, for grinding, I like keeping that stuff, because you even blow your nose after you grind something. I mean, you see all that crap in it. Let's keep some of that dust out of your face anyways, and the sparks out of your eyes, and, you know, your hair, most of my beard from, you know, catching on fire. Okay, see if I could get in there without hitting the tripod. Now I'm going to just try to follow that line with the grinder. I don't want to touch anywhere where the actual guide is, so I just got it clamped in the other side. I'm going to try to just cut like this. Get my light stick down. Try to shine a little more light on the subject. Let me see what side we're doing that. Looks like it. All right, now I'm gonna just smooth these edges out, smooth them edges out, and then I'm gonna try the plastic welder, see if it cuts through the old guide, and just use that to trim the front of this one. I keep that helmet in an old air mattress bag too, because every face shield I ever had, every time you go to use it, it's so scratched up, it's ridiculous. Makes them last a little longer. All right, I made little guide grooves with a bonsai saw. Usually I find using one of them very relaxing, but it's not usually in this garage. Let's see if I can get a good level look at it. Make sure I don't hit the cord. Go too far. This edge I'll try to get with a razor blade. It goes a little bit further in the edge, but I want to leave the factory lip on it. But this ought to give enough room for that reluctor wheel. And we'll clean that up. I'm going to see if I could get that with a razor blade, what's left. But that cut a nice little notch out of it without really having to vibrate it with a saw or anything. Oh, the video stopped on me, but this is basically what I was going after. See the side profile? I just cut out enough for that reluctor wheel. If that's all it takes to make it right, then, you know, I'm all right with that kind of repair. But I'm going to put this back on, and we're going to see if the reluctor wheel fits in there the way it should. Now we know what we're looking for. Okay, the way I have it now, notched down there, the reluctor wheel will go the whole way back like it should. Next, I'm going to put it in the press and then push it back together, or make sure it's, you know, good and flat. But a lot of you might be wondering, like, you know, why you'd even trust the timing chain if that was off. And if it takes me just that little bit to get it to clear what was obvious, the reason I'm doing it in this order, and I'm not saying this is a total wrong chain or that, you know, the quality is so bad that it's not usable, is these notches on the cam and on the crank line right now. What you want to do is put the tensioner on and spin it, and you want to make sure after 2 rotations of the crankshaft that these timing marks are dead on like they are now. But the problem with this particular engine type, some have the timing chain tensioner inside. If that was the case, we could put it on, release the tensioner, and then do that. Give the crankshaft 720 degrees, line these marks up. But some types of engines leave the timing chain tensioner in the timing chain cover. So what we have to do is put the timing chain cover on to be able to spin it. So that's a, you know, that's a 50-50. It makes it easier to replace the tensioner. And they do go bad, but, you know, it's about 50-50 if it's more convenient to be able to replace the tensioner or not being able to spin it until the tensioner's on. So that's why you know, usually I see something bad like that, right away send it back. But in this case, we're going to see how it goes. I'm going to see how it is. I'll be back. And this, guys, is a timing chain cover. I got it on eBay from Schultz Auto and Truck Recyclers in Michigan. I didn't open it yet. It came, I mean, it's well boxed. I mean, that's what I figure. If somebody does you a good job, this should have been by the 8th digit of the VIN number. That's how we matched it up. It's out of a Toyota Corolla. So, you know, the box isn't damaged by the postal company line, luckily. But this, we'll see how it is in case, you know, like I say, brands, companies, anything that you use, I believe in shouting it out, you know. It helps one other person. Let's see what's in there. Well, plenty well packaged. What I'm caring about mainly is if it's the right one. The numbers off the compare made it real easy, but I'm just looking at all the bolt holes for power steering. Maybe save this for something. Rewire for if you ever need to rewire a pickup for a crank position sensor. Sometimes you get a couple gadgets just throw in your toolbox. You never know. Someday you might use it in a project. Found this and still got the tensioner shoved in it. And this is what I was saying. This is the tensioner is in the timing chain cover. It's in the right place. The water pump, it's the same water pump. All right, looks great. So I check on the inside. that tensioner, you could see where, I don't know if you could see where this is clean and shiny. That's how far inside the tensioner this rode. Oh, I collapsed the other one, but the other one, oh here, see, I have this one locked. I'll see if I could. Let me wipe out with something. This tensioner, this much of it was inside. That means it was extended this far. Compared to this one, this is much cleaner. This tensioner was in there. So this engine likely was in a wreck with lower miles on it. So that's, I mean, definitely the timing chain tensioner is worn out anyways. Neither here nor there, but that's how you tell whenever you take it out how much of this is perfectly shiny. Because these are on spring, but you could tell how much of it was inside the valve. And that was fast. I mean, I ordered this on, I believe it was Easter Day, and this is Wednesday, so it took 2 days to get here, even over holiday. So good job, Schultz. Thank you. All right, guys, this is the idea. I just got the reluctor. You could tell it's, tiny wobble. But I'm going to put it in between these block plates and then just press down. This came with a little jack handle, but or a little handle, but I had an old jack handle. I just put a groove in it so I could use it on the valve. Gives a little bit more weight, but there's the lever. Kind of like this. Make sure you're... just keep that pressure on it for a little bit. Yeah, probably should be wearing my hard hat. All right, guys, I did get my hard hat. When presses break, I mean, shit goes bad, so you just want to be prepared. Don't expect nothing. I just want to give it a couple more cranks. Especially Harbor Freight stuff. I mean, you get a good value for your money, but it is built, at a little bit less quality still, but it's like overcompensated in size. But if one of these welds breaks, one of these eye hooks, we've seen what happened with a timing chain, and I'm giving that a good bit of force. That's probably all 12 ton of her. All right, I'm gonna let her go. Put her on the crankshaft, and I'm going to first dry fit the timing chain cover this time. I'm not going to put any RTV on it. And that's what I was going for. Like there's no movement side to side before I could rock it one way or the other. So that straightened her out. That little bit it was off. Not that that would even have made a difference, but I don't know if it bent it or not. There's no marks on it. It could have been like that from where, but at any rate, straight now. And see, guys, this is dead straight now. I don't see any impact or anything where it could have broke, but there was that little wobble to it that's gone now. What's interesting is on the cam crank correlation, we saw a different variation in intensity. I wonder if it did have a wobble to it, if that would affect, because that affects how close it rides up against the crank position sensor, or how far away it is. If it wobbles, it's going to vary in intensity. So maybe that was, it's near here nor there, but with a scope, you could kind of take a peek. And that's why I like, just exploring, because this is the crank sensor that we're getting from the cam crank correlation. The straighter, the cleaner the sensor, and the better signal you get, the better that signal should look. So we're going to have something to compare it to anyways. But even double check, I was curious if there was a washer behind here. But see that dot there? That dot's from the crank gear. The crank gear has a dot to line up with the timing chain. So this rode directly up against the crank gear. Because a washer to space it out, but none came off. And that's the dot it's going to ride up against to now. So just showing you is a lot easier. See the dot on the back of the old crank sprocket? It goes on the crankshaft this way. The sprockets are facing the engine. And then that dot is right there. That's an impression of it. So there was no washer in between here. You just want to double check, triple check, whenever you run into clearance issues like that. But then there's where I could see where it was. Because if you take this and line the keyway up, then that dot's right there. So no washer, this goes in like that, and then this is the F. This faces front. I'm going to put it back together, and like I say, I'm going to take the sensors out of this and then just dry fit it. This one, I cleaned everything. I usually don't dry fit it if I got all the surfaces clean, clear, and I had alignment pegs. When you get one from a junkyard, you definitely want to dry fit it. The one that came off of it, not so much, but I know it fit flush the whole way around. So, but it was in here whenever I tightened it, gave it the final torque. All right, guys, next I'm going to cut the zip ties loose. And this was basically, I put the crescent wrenches in the zip ties. The cams are opposing each other with spring tension. As long as the chain doesn't come off these gears, they stay still. And these timing marks didn't move at all. We're still right where the dot is and right where the line is. And our crank sensor, or our crank mark, is still right on TDC. Now you can see some of the orange behind the chain, but it's still lined up there. Now, before I actually put it together, tonight I'm going to look up and make sure there isn't supposed to be a bearing there. Because we did find some metal, or a washer, I'm sorry. But we did find some metal stuck to the end of the crank position sensor. So, worth a little bit of research anyways. I can't remember from memory, but so it keeps them together. If you could keep the cams together, you don't have to go through all that adjusting again. So that kept it good and steady. Let's see, the reluctor wheel sits up against the crank the way it should now. Even whenever I press, it's solid up against the crank gear. So what I did, the other part that I was concerned about is how close this was to right here. See, there's not much of a gap. It was almost touching this. So we ground it down to the Toyota size. And what I did is I put 1 round drop of silicone. I want to make sure that that's making contact right there, that this is touching and not, getting jammed here somewhere. All right, it seals good the whole way around. It's on the alignment pegs up top. Whenever I push from the middle, it's just what the other one looked like. But what I'm going to be interested in is that little bead of RTV. If it looks like it was smashed down pretty good, then I'd say we're good to go. At least put the tensioner in it and spin it over. At least to put the tensioner in and give it a spin. You want to go over the whole way again until these come around. The paint on the chain won't align, but in here, it should be dead on after 2 rotations of the crank. All right, guys, there we could see it smashed out. It's not a round drop no more, so it made contact. So I'm going to flip this over, clean this up like I did the other one, just make sure it looks good, get all this crust off of it, get the water pump gasket out of there, get the crankshaft gasket out of there, and I could reuse that one. That's what's nice about using a sill and bearing installer. If you have to drive that back out, I didn't stake it with anything yet. Whenever you use a drift punch, you usually stake it so it doesn't move. I used RTV Optimum and just a sill installer, so I could drive that right back out. So I had that one looking pretty decent, like the rocker cover. That's why it's always such a bummer when it happens, but we're not going to put this on dirty, that's for sure. I'm going to clean it up as best as I can, because like I say, I like sealing these up good and having everything clean. That way in the future, if you develop an oil leak or something, you could tell instantly if it's from here or here. It's not just covered in oil. It's actually clean with like one drip coming out of it. That's what you want.